You're listening to Yo Quiero Dinero, a personal finance podcast for the modern Latina. I'm your host, Janice Torres Rodriguez, and I'm here to help you be poderosa with your dinero. I'm an engineer, a blogger, and an entrepreneur that built a $50,000 side hustle, and I'm obsessed with all things personal finance. On this show, we're going to talk about how to make dinero, how to keep your dinero, and how to make it grow. Are you ready? Vámonos. Hola, mi gente. Welcome back to another episode of Yo Quiero Dinero, the podcast. This is your host, Janice, and I think today's episode is going to blow your mind. We are going to be talking to Yaritza Gonzalez of the College Money Chica. Yaritza is a college education professional with a college admissions coaching side hustle called College Money Chica. Through College Money Chica, Yaritza teaches Latinos the tips and tricks that helped her land over $200,000 in scholarship money, bankrolling her private and Ivy League education.
Say what?
She attended Seton Hall University and later earned a graduate degree from Columbia University's Teachers College, where she earned a master's in higher and post-secondary education. Yaritza is on a mission to let every Latino know that debt-free college is possible and attainable.
Okay!
She was raised in Puerto Rico and in northern New Jersey, and she's currently based in the greater New York area. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation with Yaritza Gonzalez of College Money Chica. Before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you about today's sponsor for the podcast, ScholarRaise. If you're looking for a better way to save for your kids' education, ScholarRaise is a community-based college savings platform that lets your friends and family contribute online, knowing it's going towards something great. Imagine what your child could do if they could graduate with less student debt. Maybe they'll get a head start in investing and building their own wealth. Maybe they'll head overseas to expand their horizons. Or perhaps they can afford to take that unpaid dream internship and gain priceless experience. Whatever it is, it's better than shoveling a portion of their salary into an interest-bearing black hole. Am I right? Here's the problem. Most of us aren't using the proper tools to save. We're led to believe that a student loan is the best option. But ScholarRaise is different. Accounts are free, easy to set up, and there are no surprises. And your earnings grow tax-free, your money's invested so it can grow faster than a savings account, like 6 times faster. Simply put, it's the easiest and most effective way to save for college. Are you ready to start investing in your child's future? Awesome. The sooner you start, the more time it has to work. Open your account in 3 easy steps. That's it. No catch, no bullshit. ScholarRaise. Save for college the smart way. Sign up at scholarraise.com/dinero. Yaritza, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I am just completely blown away by your story. We connected on Instagram, and you were actually able to land over $200,000. Yes, y'all, I said $200,000 in scholarship money to get how many degrees?
I did my undergraduate and then my graduate degree. So right now I'm working towards getting my doctorate paid. So that's pending.
Girl, okay. I don't even know how to react other than just pure shock and awe. Because that number is startling. That's usually the type of debt that people get into to go to school, but you were actually able to get that money and avoid that debt, which is like the most ballin' ass thing I've ever heard in my life. So
Thank you.
I cannot wait to get into this conversation. Let's start off with you introducing yourself to the audience.
Okay, awesome. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I love what you're doing with the podcast and just providing representation in the financial, personal finance space.
Thank you.
I love that there's the bilingual twist to it. More of that. But yeah, so my name is Yaritza Gonzalez, and I'm from, I was raised between Puerto Rico, west coast of Puerto Rico, and New Jersey, northern Jersey, specifically in Newark. And basically, my story is that I knew that when I was in high school, I knew that I wanted to go to college, but I also knew that it was very expensive. And I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. And at the time, my mother, when I was in high school, my mother was attending community college, and I knew that I wanted to go the college route, but my parents had her tuition to pay for. So I wanted to make sure that I found a way to cover my tuition. And that's when I reached out to my guidance counselor, and she told me about this thing called scholarships. And I was like, what is that? And she told me, well, scholarships are kind of like essay writing contests where you write an essay, and if the committee likes your response, then they give you money for college. And at the time when I was in high school, I wanted to be a journalist. I was like convinced that I was going to be like the Latina Oprah, and that's like really what I wanted to do. So I said, like, writing is my thing, so of course I'm going to give it a shot. So I started just kind of searching for local scholarships, and we could talk more about my strategies, but I just went crazy applying for scholarships, and I never thought that I would win the amount of money that I did, and it really has changed my life. And what I do now is that I share with Latino families specifically the tips and tricks that I use to earn scholarships, to teach families that going to college debt-free is possible, and it's also attainable. Like, you don't have to be some like super smart whiz. You just need to have access to the information in order to apply it. So that's what I do with my brand College Money Chica. So in the day, I'm a university fundraiser, and my experience doing that helps me teach students like what we look for on the committee side of things, like, because I help fundraise for the scholarship, so I know what they're looking for. And then I use that knowledge to help with my side hustle, which is College Money Chica, where I teach parents the tips and tricks.
That is amazing. And I love how full circle your journey has been. So you've found the way that the systems work, and now you're actually helping our community access these same opportunities. So kudos to you. That is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So we are going to get all into how you actually did this, because I'm sure like people are still trying to pick their like chins up off the floor with this information that you have just shared. So first, let's dive into this question that I ask all of my guests, because I know Latinos have a very interesting relationship with money.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious what your relationship was like with money growing up.
Yeah, so I actually have never really thought about this question until you sent it to me, and it kind of set me on a journey thinking back, like, what was my relationship with money? And to be honest, I think that I feel very privileged, because growing up, like, even though my parents didn't have a lot, I never felt like we were lacking. And, whatever financial struggles they had, I'm sure they kept it from me. So, because I just feel like when I think back, I don't really like have, I guess, anxiety in a way that a lot of other immigrant families have. So I'm really grateful to my parents for kind of shielding me from that. But what I know is that, my parents grew up in rural Puerto Rico, in Moca. So that's like puro campo. And so my parents, they really had a tough upbringing. Like, my mom is one of 6 and my dad is one of 10. So really, and my grandparents had nothing. So they had to figure it out on their own. And I was born to really young parents. Like, I was born only 2 weeks after my mom's 20th birthday. So I say that we grew up together. And I really saw them like start from the bottom and was part of that journey. But I never felt like, there was always security in my eyes. But, I went to school in Newark, which is, people would categorize it as it is an underserved area. And so I remember seeing from my peers, just my friends, like the living conditions that they were in. And so I think seeing that made me feel like I was privileged, right? Even though, I mean, we weren't living a fancy life. We were like living in like a regular apartment, but it really made me feel like, I have, I guess, abundance. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that really shaped my money mindset, because even when I approached going finding money for college, like I always felt like why not? Sure, it's possible. Like I can find it.
Yeah.
And so
Wow, that's super powerful.
yeah, so a lot of the things I teach, and we'll get into it later, is just like believing that it's possible. Now I haven't been the best, my parents like allowed me to make mistakes, like when I won the money for college, and I kind of was irresponsible with it. Because when you give a teenager that amount of money, they're gonna do dumb stuff.
Yeah. So
Uh,
what did you do?
Oh my God. So, all right. So basically, I won several scholarships, and some were smaller $500 awards, and others were like the largest scholarship I got was from the institution itself. So, Seton Hall University gave me a full tuition scholarship. And then I got scholarships on the side. So one of them in particular was the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, which later wound up being my employer.
Ah.
Yeah, but I'll get into that. And so the Hispanic Scholarship Fund gave me $10,000 cash, right? So I thought I was like balling, right? But the way they did it is like, oh, they split it up into 4 payments. So you're 4 years. So you would get $2,500 a year if you maintain the GPA and all the requirements. So when I went to Seton Hall, I only had full tuition. So I I really wanted to have an on-campus experience. So for my freshman year, I didn't have the full 10,000 yet. So I took out a loan, right? And I was saying like, oh, I'll just pay the $10,000 back to the loan when I get the rest of my scholarship. Except like I didn't do that. I went to like Punta Cana.
Ah, yes.
I went on like all this spring break. And college was such like a culture shock because, I grew up in like a mostly Latino immigrant area. And then I go to like a private institution where like people come for money. And it was just like, oh, well, people go on spring break. Like that's what they do. Well, I'm going to go do that because, I have my refund check and all these things. So basically, I kind of like, partied that money away, which is like, okay, fine, because I had like great experiences. But after I graduated college, I, definitely had to pay that back. And then also, in those times, the college campuses were having the credit card companies, have access to us. So I got a MTVU City card so I could get a free T-shirt. And
Of
what
course.
wound up happening is that I was just putting money on that card to quote unquote build credit, but then I would pay the minimum. And then eventually, I mean, by the time I graduated college, I hadn't realized that I had like $20,000 to pay.
Wow.
And then I was like, what? But I'm really grateful to that experience because it taught me like what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of forced me to just kind of get my money right. And
Yeah.
I aggressively paid the cards down. And because I was like so good at aggressively paying the cards down, I was like, oh, I could also do that to my savings. So when I did that to my savings, I had saved enough money for a down payment. I mean, I know how you feel about buying homes, but
No, wait. I want to clarify that because I feel like people think I'm like a home buying hater and I'm really not. I just feel like as long as you know what you're getting into and you have like the financial cushion in place, do that shit. But don't be like me, like putting 3% down on a house, having like no emergency fund, and then wondering like why you're poor
yeah.
because it's just not a vibe.
Mhm. Yeah, so I mean, honestly, I think I did like the same.
Yeah.
I bought my apartment, so thankfully, with the scholarships, like I had that $10,000, but besides that, I didn't have like any student debt, and once I paid that, I was fine. And so, like, I was living with my parents, paying those card down, and I was like, you know what, like, I want my own place, but I didn't necessarily want it to rent. So really, like, I remember closing on my mortgage, and then my mortgage broker was like, "Hey, you're missing $2,000," and I was like, "Can we move the closing date like 2 weeks till I get paid?" Like that's how, like that's how I was getting by. But
Yeah.
thankfully, like my salary increased over time, so like now I'm good. But I agree with you. I wouldn't suggest that, and I'm lucky that it worked out for me. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I love how, the lessons that you learned are lessons that we all learn. Like, girl, I used my grad school tuition reimbursement checks to pay for a wedding full of people that I don't even talk to anymore. So, we all just do really dumb shit with money because half the time we don't really know. And like, there's just not a lot of emphasis on understanding like the repercussions of the decisions that you make until you've already made them. And then you're like, oh shit, now I got to figure out like, I got to pay down this money from my student loans that I was supposed to pay off with my tuition reimbursement check, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, I think it's also like lack of education, like not really
Yeah.
knowing what that means. Which is kind of why I try why I do what I do, because I want, like, my philosophy is like debt-free college is possible, but I don't think taking out student loans is necessarily bad, right? Sometimes like you have to do it in order to get to where you want to go, but the whole thing is it's about being informed.
Hmm.
So I think that's what's lacking on purpose, because the banks don't want us to know about that, the universities don't want us to know about that. So it really takes like people in the community, people like you and like me, to share with others, like, hey, this is what you're getting yourself into. So
Hmm.
mhm.
True story.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's walk through the process that you took to actually secure 6 figures worth of scholarships. Where did you get started and what was your plan?
Yeah, so I get this question a lot, and so to be honest, like I didn't really have a plan. Heard that, I asked my guidance counselor, like, how do you get money for college? And she said scholarships. And so then I kind of like, I went with that. And so I researched all I could about scholarships. So, really, so first of all, I like to inform people that there are four different sources of funding, four main sources of funding for your financial aid package. So that includes federal money. So that's like things like Pell Grant, and the loans come from federal money. Then there's state funds, which depending on what you want to study, you may get access. Like in New York City, you could get in New York, you could get an NY Teach grant, and that comes from the state. And then you have institutional aid, which comes directly from the college, which is the most money that where I suggest people to really focus their search on. And then there's outside scholarships with which is like kind of what I mentioned with the Hispanic Scholarship Fund and other awards like
Hmm.
professional associations. So I kind of learned all of that trial by error, if that's if
Yeah.
that's the term. Yeah. But really, it all started in my guidance counselor's office. So, what I suggest for students to do is to really become friendly with your guidance counselor and also parents, right? So, a lot of people don't even know who their counselor is. So, really just get familiar with that person, because they're your gatekeeper. And they also have access to local scholarships that you might have. Local scholarships tend to have less competition, so you have a greater chance of winning. But I got most of my scholarships by going to the institutional website. So for example, like Seton Hall, and you could do this for any school, you can search under financial aid. There's usually a scholarship section, and there's a list of what scholarships they have available. Now, sometimes they will have full tuition scholarships listed there, or, smaller awards. So you could do that for any college and just kind of see like which college has the best things that you qualify for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but besides that, I also searched for scholarships that specifically dealt with like my ethnicity and what I wanted to study. So when I won the scholarships from Hispanic Scholarship Fund and Hispanic Heritage Foundation, Aspira, I was applying for awards that were specifically looking for Latinas that wanted to be in journalism. And you could do this with whatever career path you're pursuing. So if you are, want to be a nurse, right? And you're, let's say, Afro-Latina, like there are professional associations that are only for Black nurses, and that you can apply directly for them because they want to support people who are up and coming, right? So, so that's kind of how I went about it. I mean, a lot of people think like, oh, it's so much work to apply to a scholarship. But the truth is, like, you're going to apply to college anyway, and you can use that essay to apply to, 100 different scholarships, right? It's the same essay. They ask the same things, basically, like what inspired you to pursue your career path, and like describe a challenge that you overcame. Like, once you have like that one template, it's basically like a copy and paste job,
Right.
So I tell people not to get overwhelmed.
That's great advice. And I think you're right. What discourages so many people from doing this is just like the extra work that it's going to take.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys have to frame it like, yo, these student loans can follow you for like 20, 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
So is writing an essay or a couple of essays like a more valuable use of your time than paying back debt for 20 years? I think so.
Yeah. You know what? I think that people hear like $200,000 and they're like, oh God, like that's kind of like winning the lottery. Like that'll never happen to me, so I'm not going to waste my time. But the truth is, like, so many people have that mindset that they don't wind up even applying, right? So your competition pool is actually much smaller than you think. And I know that from experience because I worked many years at the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, and I have sat on many different scholarship committees where we're just like begging people, like, please apply. Like, we don't even have people to give the money away to.
Yeah.
So don't let that discourage you, and just kind of apply anyway. Like by not applying, you're telling yourself no.
Yes.
Like the committee telling you no, so.
Yeah, that is such a good point. When I decided I wanted to launch a podcast, I have to admit, I had no idea where I was going to start. That is until I found Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. It gives you everything you need all in one place for free, and you can use it right from your phone or computer. They have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast so it sounds great. And get this, they'll even help you distribute your podcast so it can be heard everywhere, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Isn't that freaking awesome? I mean, what are you waiting for? Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Okay, so who or what inspired you or motivated you to share all of this knowledge with other people?
Yeah, so after I won the scholarships, I kept being asked back to my high school to talk to students, and so that kind of started happening organically. My guidance counselor, we formed a great relationship. She's actually still a friend of mine. Shout out to Nancy Ortiz. And so really, like, she is an amazing, amazing counselor. And she wanted me to come back to the school and talk to students. So I was doing that through all my college years. But one time, the Hispanic Scholarship Fund reached out to me and said, like, hey, your sponsor, which was FedEx, they're actually holding an event with us in your area. Like, would you be willing to come and talk about your experience? And I said, sure, I'll do that. So I was in my junior year of college. And so, they were like, oh, you just have to put a few words together. Well, I gave a speech that got like a standing ovation. And after my speech, FedEx decided to commit more money because they wanted to help more students like me.
Wow.
And that's when the fundraising team at Hispanic Scholarship Fund came up to me and was like, hey, you're really good at this. Do you want to become a fundraiser? And I was like, in my head, like, hell no. I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, that sounds so lame. Like, I'm going to be a journalist, But the thing was that it was like 2008, 2009. And like the world was going through a financial collapse and nobody had jobs. Like, all my friends were graduating and they were just like, going back home to live with their parents with all these loans. And I got offered this job to work on the fundraising team. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this job until like the economy gets better. So I took it, and then I realized I learned that I was like really good at it, because really what it just required me to do was to like tell my story, and I could do that easily. So I did really well. And after a couple of years there, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get back. The economy was better. I'm going to get back into my original goal, which was to work in media. So I worked at Univision for a little bit. And then I realized, like, you know what? I don't feel like I'm really like helping my community the way that I was when I was at the Hispanic Scholarship Fund. Mm-hmm. So even, and at that time, unfortunately, they had to close their New York office, but I felt like such a connection with like still continuing the work. And I was still being called back to speak at high schools, to speak at churches, that that's when I said, you know what, I'm just going to do this like on my own. And I started that's when I started College Money Chica, except that at that point, it didn't have a name. It was just like, the girl that talks about scholarships.
Yeah.
Later on, I wound up formalizing it. And then I wound up getting back into fundraising. So I got a job, and this leads into how I paid for graduate school. I wound up using my experience at Hispanic Scholarship Fund to get a fundraising job at Columbia University.
Wow.
Which when I was in high school, like I just didn't even know what Ivy League was, right? So mm-hmm. I could have never even like imagined that I could be in such a space. But when I got the job there, before I took the job, I was like, what are those tuition benefits?
I know that's right.
So I decided like I was going to take the job anyway, but I found out that after 2 years working there, you have access like 100% to the tuition benefits. So I was
wow. Like, so wait, so does that mean you get to go to school for free?
Yes. Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And that's how it is at almost every university.
What?
Yeah. So if you work at the college, you can study there for free. You usually have to, well, it depends what program. Like you can't, if it's a full-time program, obviously because you're working full-time, you can't do the program, right? But yeah, most colleges will pay for your tuition if you work there. So I always share that, like, even if you're going into another field, like accounting or graphic design or something like that, like if you really want to get a graduate work done, like try and find a position in your field at a college, get your graduate work done, and then you can move on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is the ultimate hustle, because not only are you making money, but you're getting a free ass education and experience too through this job. So it's like Oh my God, my mind is blown. Okay,
Yeah.
let's keep going.
Yeah, so that's a win-win because you're working there, you're getting the experience, and you're going to school for free. And you could do this at any level. Like, let's say you don't have a bachelor's yet, you could get a job at a community college. So right now I work for CUNY, so City University of New York system. And, as part of my employee benefits, like I could go to any CUNY school. So yeah, I definitely encourage people to look into that.
Wow. Amazing. Okay, so I would love you to share some tips for people who want to pursue debt free college. It sounds like such a fantasy, but clearly it's not. But you need to be kind of strategic about your approach, right?
Yeah, so I have a few things for people to keep in mind. I like to call it my B list, right? So it's a 4 B's. So I talk about number one, be flexible, right? Sometimes people have a dream school in mind, right? I think that it's easy to get caught up with I've always wanted to go to NYU, which by the way is like historically known to not give any aid, right?
Mm,
Sometimes your dream school can land you in a financial prison, right?
ooh.
So you have to think like, all right, the 4 years that I'm spending at this college, is it going to be worth the literal possible 30 years that I'm going to be paying these loans, right? So I think
Mhm.
be flexible. Sometimes the school that gives you the best package isn't going to be your dream school, but be open. So another thing I talk about is staying focused, right? So being focused. And I tell people that before, back in the day, colleges were really looking for like a well-rounded um, student, right? But now what they're looking for, and the best way to get money for college, is to be extremely focused in your field of choice. So for example, if you are, let's say, if you know that you want to do engineering, right? Like really spend your high school years, and this might be more for the parents to tell their students, make sure that your student spends their high school years becoming involved in the areas that will develop them in an area that involves engineering. So maybe being on the robotics team, like instead of spending going to basketball camp, maybe go to engineering camp, or let's say you don't have access to go to any camp, just like doing free courses online that have to do with engineering, right? Because what you're showing college committees is that, oh, I'm really dedicated to this one field. And as someone who's a college administrator, I can tell you that it's just easy to place that student. And it's easy to find them and say like, oh, we need to give them money because like they're very focused in this one area, right? So the more
Mhm.
focused you are, the better it is. And then that way you can apply specifically to professional associations in that one area. So, with engineering, there's the Society of Hispanic Engineers. I think more the acronym than I do. Um,
I
but
won't even front. I don't.
but okay, let's say one of the scholarships that I know about, because I was in communications, is the Women in Communication Scholarship, or nursing scholarship. So like the more focused you are, the easier it is to get a scholarship. And I know a lot of students are like undecided, of course, because you're like 17 and don't know what you want to do for the rest of your life.
Right.
But I tell people like choose a major anyway, and if you change it later on, then you'll deal with that later, right?
Mhm.
Because it's like it's just easier to get money when you have a focus, right?
Yeah.
So the other B I have is befriend, right? So I
Mm.
say that closed mouths don't get fed. And if you have a goal, you need to share that goal with everyone who'll listen, right? So I befriended my guidance counselor, and the goal was how to find money for college. And after I found out, I started telling my teachers, like, hey, I'm looking for scholarships. Well, I needed their help anyway because I needed letters of recommendation. But they, every time like a scholarship opportunity, they heard of one, they thought of me, right? If people don't really know like what you want to get into, they can't help you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in the Latino community, there's a lot of not shame, but like trepidation to share what your goals are a bit because you're scared of like mal de ojo. You don't want people to like, rain on your parade. But I say like, forget about that, and share with people like what you're trying to do because you never know who might know somebody who knows somebody who can help you, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, and so my last B is believe, right? So there's a quote by Henry Ford. It goes, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
Mm.
And I think that it's so true, right? So for me, maybe it was like optimistic, me being optimistically naive, but I just kind of like always felt like, yeah, I can find money for college. Why not? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of having your mindset like this is possible and this is what I'm what I'm going to achieve. So I remember in high school, even before I knew about like law of attraction and all this spirituality and all this stuff, I used to like put post-its like on my bathroom mirror, and I would say like, full ride scholarship, full ride scholarship. And then like it actually happens, right? So just like always staying in the mindset. And let me tell you, like I had some hater friends, okay?
There's always at least one.
Yeah, I had some hater friends that were like, "Oh, you're trying to be a teacher's pet," and
Oh boy.
with those, like I stopped sharing my goals with them. But you always know like who is like on your side, right? So just kind of stick with the crew that is aligned with your goals, right? And for all the haters, like whatever, they can do whatever they want. So
Exactly. That I love that advice, and that is so damn true. Like, why I feel like there's such a stigma, especially in our community, about like people who quote unquote overachieve.
Mhm.
Like they're made to feel shame about it. Like, oh, you talk so white, or oh, why are you getting such good grades? It's like, yo, like, why are we holding ourselves to such a shitty standard? Like,
Yeah.
stop it. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think like some of it is like crabs in a bucket syndrome. Like
Mm.
they don't want to see someone like I had a friend that would say people want to see you do well, but not better than them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, but especially like for young people, I would, in that sense, I would advise like sharing your goals with people who can help you get to where you want to be. So that might be like an older cousin or your teachers, right? But if your peers have like a hater attitude, then just don't share with them.
Word. And at some point you're not gonna have to deal with them anyway, because you're gonna be off like killing it and doing your thing. So don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
All right. So since you are giving advice, I'm wondering what advice you have for parents who don't know how to help their kids manage or minimize their student loan debt. I can speak for myself. My parents didn't have a clue how to help me with school. They didn't have the financial means to help me save. They didn't know anything about scholarships. So it was really up to me to figure out how I was going to go to school. And I took the approach that whoever gives me full ride, like that's where I'm going to go. I don't even care if it's a local school or if it's a state school or if it's a private school. I'm going wherever I don't have to pay anything. And that's exactly what I did. So
Yeah.
what advice do you have for parents that just like
Wait,
overwhelmed with the idea?
yeah. Wait, I'm curious, where did you go?
I went to Montclair State University.
Oh, shout out Red Hawks.
Yes.
So my mom actually, after she finished the community college, she went to Montclair.
That's
And,
awesome.
and so did my brother, and they got their bachelor's. And my mom actually recently got her master's from Montclair.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Shout out to mom, yo.
yeah,
She's doing it.
yeah, she's awesome. So, yeah, I'm the only one that went to Seton Hall, which it's like the rival school, but
Uh-huh.
but yeah, so my advice to parents would be, just kind of reiterating what I said before is like, forget the popularity contest. Like, if you might find that your student, your child is like going off of like what their friends are doing, like, oh, this person is applying to, Dartmouth or whatever fancy schools, and sometimes they'll want to follow that path, but it's like, stay in your lane, right? Like, you need to pick a school that is a good fit, like not only financially, but also like socially and academically for your child, right? So kind of stay focused on like what your child wants to study, and what is their learning style, right? So like a large school, like let's say Rutgers, or large state schools in Florida, I mean, they are huge, right? Like one,
Mm-hmm.
like English 101 class might have like 300 students in it, right? But smaller schools, and a 300-person classroom might not work for your child, but a smaller school might have only 30 kids, and then your child can succeed. Now, I tell people that they should not be scared of the price tag. So, for example, like let's say the Ivies, right? So, Ivy League universities, let's say like Cornell, it's almost $80,000 a year, right? And
Oh my God.
yeah. Most parents would see that and would think like, oh, I'm not even going to apply to that school because there's no way I could afford that. But the truth is, like, if you get into Cornell, like, they will meet your need, right? Especially if you're beyond below a certain income level. So for families that make under $125,000 a year, if your child gets into Cornell, you get a free ride. And
Wow.
a lot of people actually don't know about that. And so I would say, like, if the price tag scares you, apply anyway, because there's sometimes the private schools have more, can wind up being cheaper than the state schools. So a lot of people say like, oh, I'm not even going to apply to the fancy school because it's just too much, when the state school tuition is affordable, and it's just easier for my family. But the thing is that because the state schools, because they are regulated so heavily by the government, they won't be able to offer you scholarships that private institutions can give to you easily. Um,
Mm.
so, that's kind of what happened with me. I won a full tuition scholarship to several private schools because I was a good student, and I was from a diverse background, and they wanted to increase diversity on campus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were willing to pay for my tuition if I went to their school, right? Now, I also got into my state schools, and they gave me nothing, because
Oh, wow.
yeah. So
It's very counterintuitive to a lot of the messaging that we get. Like, go to community college, get the 2 years, then go to the state school. You can pay for that. But I think this is a revolutionary idea that makes so much more sense because a lot of these private schools have ballin' ass alumni that can
exactly.
fund these scholarships in a way that a state school just does not.
Yeah, exactly. And so actually that's what I do now in my day job. Like, I fundraise, I ask alumni to give back to their institutions, so then we can give scholarships to the current students.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say, as you search on the scholarship section of the websites, like I recommended earlier, also look into their alumni association, because sometimes they give scholarships directly.
Mm.
So that's another workaround. But I would say, like, above all, really, I think that something that I haven't said here is that, I was a good student. I didn't have a 4.0, but I did graduate with a 3.5. And I was very involved on campus. Like, I had, like, I was class president. So I was an involved student, right? And so I think that, especially if you have a freshman in high school now, like, really talk to them about joining clubs or just being a leader, right? Because that's what attracts colleges, this sense of leadership. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would say focus on, you don't have to have perfect grades, but focus on getting good grades, being a leader, and also take advantage of AP classes, any dual enrollment programs that your high school is involved with, because those classes equal college money at the end of the day. Because first of all, AP classes and dual enrollment classes, usually it's like the high school has a program with either community college or a local college where they teach a high school class, but it's college credit. Like that is basically a college class, and what if you pass it with a passing grade, you don't have to take that class in college. So I know students who it depends what the high school offers, but they graduated with 15 college credits their senior year, and they already like are a semester ahead. And I know students that a lot of schools offer flat tuition, so you can take between 12 to 21 credits, and it's the same cost. So then they accelerate their program. So in 4 years, they were able to graduate with their master's because in high school, they already knocked out, 15 credits.
Mm.
So that's a way, a workaround to get, to minimize the student loan debt.
Mm-hmm. And what's a dual enrollment program?
Yeah, so a dual enrollment program is sometimes offered by high schools where they have an agreement with a local community college or a state school where they teach college classes in the high school. Or sometimes the high school students actually go to the college and take a class. So it could be a class like American history or, any class. And they get college credit for it. And so your high school is basically paying for those college credits. And another thing I'll mention, like for a lot of our native Spanish speakers, or if you speak another language, like that's money right there, because in most schools you have to, as part of the core requirement, you have to take a language. And if you already know another language, you just test out of it and you don't have to pay for those 2 classes. And that's already money that you're saving. So in my case, like I already, spoke Spanish. So I just took a Spanish test, which was like so easy. And I didn't have to worry about taking those classes, and I took something else.
You take care of your body by exercising, eating right, and getting enough sleep. But are you doing the same for your mind? On this podcast, we're always talking about mindset and mental health as the foundation for financial wellness. So we're super proud to partner with BetterHelp to get you access to professional, affordable therapy right at your fingertips. Even with health insurance coverage, traditional therapy costs over $100 per session, and that's if you can even get an appointment. Online counseling is an effective, convenient, and affordable way to get help with many issues. You can chat with your therapist at your convenience in whatever mode you're most comfortable with. Just take a short quiz and get personally matched with one of BetterHelp's professional, licensed, and experienced counselors, and get the support and guidance you need to start making a change. As a reminder, online therapy is not suitable for someone who's suffering from a severe mental health condition that makes them a danger to themselves or others. Download the BetterHelp app today and get started with 10% off exclusively for Yo Quiero Dinero podcast listeners. Just use the discount code Dinero, that's DINERO, and you can get 10% off your first month. You can also go to betterhelp.com/dinero for the same offer. BetterHelp, affordable, private, online counseling, anytime, anywhere. Excellent, excellent advice. Okay, so I'm curious, what are some resources that you actually used for your college scholarship search?
Yeah, so I did my college scholarship search a long time ago, but a lot of the resources I use are still helpful. So really, there's this big book called The Big Book of Scholarships. I think it's printed by Kaplan. You can get that, and it has scholarships depending on what state you're in. I'll mention again becoming friends with your guidance counselor, because sometimes they get access to local scholarships, and then they can tell you before anyone. But I suggest that students really look into this new app that's called Scholly. It was on Shark Tank. Like the founder, he's amazing. So the Scholly app really matches you with scholarships, and you just enter, what your GPA is, what kind of what major you're looking into, and it will match you with scholarships that you're eligible for. Another website that does the same is called Big Future, and it's run by the College Board. So it's kind of like a matching site. And so I would also say the school websites. I'm going to repeat that again, just because like you'll find like as you do the research, like these scholarships like tend to be hidden under the financial aid and tuition section of the school websites, or under the Alumni Association website. And there you'll find like scholarships that they have eligible. I suggest doing that first, because you really want to see like, you want to go for the gold. So those are those are really like the big scholarships.
Got it.
And then in addition to that, I always say search for scholarship based on things like ethnicity, the profession you're getting into, your hobbies. Like I recently saw a scholarship that was for vegetarians, and it was, yeah, they were giving like $10,000 away, and all you had to do was write an essay about why you're passionate about sharing the vegetarian lifestyle.
Yo, that is wild.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And there's scholarships, I mean, for everything. Like you'd be surprised, like there's scholarships for people who are left-handed, people who are redheaded. Like if yeah, like if you're a twin, there are scholarships specifically for that. So really think about like every wacky thing you're into and just see like, oh, I wonder if there's a scholarship for that.
Because there probably is.
Yeah, exactly. So
wow. That's awesome. And we're going to include the links for all of that information in the show notes.
yeah, awesome. Yeah, and so, I'm sorry. So another thing I'll add is that I, on my website, collegemoneychica.com, I have a mailing list that I sometimes send scholarships out. So definitely go on and sign up for my mailing list so you can get access to those scholarships as well.
Fantastic. All right. So I know you're into manifestation and the power of the mind. So I'm curious, do you have a money mantra, and what is it?
My money mantra is money flows to me like a river. And then I picture like a waterfall, and I picture this river coming to me, and I'm just like under the waterfall, like, kind of like a Pantene commercial, like washing my hair and like, yes, money is coming to me. And I really feel that. And I specifically picture like there's a waterfall by where I'm from in Puerto Rico, Gozalandia, for anyone who knows it. And I just picture myself there, but it's like a river of money coming to me. And that has been so helpful for me, because I really feel calm when I picture that image, and I think like everything will be okay. And my profession is university fundraising, and I have a fundraising goal to meet. And so I use this like in my personal life and also in my career, because a lot of people think like, oh, fundraising must be so annoying because you have to ask people for money, right? But I actually think like people are willing to give you money, right? And just not only with my fundraising career, but I just think to yourself, like, people are willing to give me money to go to college because like I'm an awesome student and I have something to give to the world, right? And that's always the mindset that I had, and what I encourage people to take on. So
it's such a powerful message, and it's so true. Like, we have to believe that we are worthy to then just put yourself out there, because when you start just thinking like, nobody's gonna care, nobody wants to help me, I'm not even going to bother, you're like you said, you're like stopping yourself before you even get started.
Yeah, exactly. And so I want to mention something because sometimes I hear my students say, like, oh, there's nothing special about me because I have, like, my parents, they just clean houses, or my dad's a truck driver. And really, after school, I just have to take care of my siblings, and I haven't really done anything special. But I tell students that, like, every story, no matter what, is unique and it's marketable, right? You just have to
Mm,
find a way to share that special story. So let's say you can't really get into like after school activities, or get any kind of job after school because you're caring for siblings. Like, that's still valuable experience because you're showing, that shows that you are trustworthy, that you can keep a commitment, that you are a responsible person if you're responsible for your siblings. So even though, like, you may not think it's special, a college committee or a scholarship committee really would see value in that, right? So,
mhm.
you know, I just wanted to share that because I hear that story a lot.
Yeah, that is very powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Hmm.
Yuritsa, this has been an amazing conversation. Like, I am so fired up for people to hear this information because it just gives me this renewed sense of hope that the struggle that so many of us are dealing with student loan debt, it's actually something that you can actively fight against, especially if there's kids in your life, whether they're your own children or people that you love, your nieces, your nephews that are thinking or getting ready for that college experience. Like, share this with them because they can save themselves potentially the 20 to 25 years of enslavement that can come with major student loan debt.
That's, yeah, enslavement is right. Before we wrap, I wanted to share like one specific scholarship that I feel like would be helpful to your audience. One association that I like to work with is called Gaye. It's the Cuban American Alliance for Leadership and Education. They give out a scholarship called the Pinos Nuevos Scholarship every year, and I believe it's $10,000 for anyone of Cuban descent, and you can live in any state. And I know the founder of the organization, and a lot of their they struggle to find people to apply, right? So you'd be
Mm,
surprised, even giving away $10,000. So I definitely want to put their name out there. Not only that, they do leadership development seminars. It's just like it's such a great organization, and they need more young Cubans to join. So even if you don't have a student right now that's going off to college, share this information with. Like, the college journey starts really like as a freshman in high school. So
mhm.
bookmark it and share when it's appropriate.
Absolutely. And so where can we find out more about you and College Money Chica?
Yeah, so right now I'm really trying to build my followers on Instagram. So follow me on at College Money Chica on Instagram, and I also have my website, which is www.collegemoneychica.com, and there you can sign up for my mailing list. And for the fall, I do have a College Money Chica mentoring program that I do every year. And in this mentorship program, I work with students one on one to help craft their college admissions essay. And I really use my experience in winning scholarships to put the keywords that I know colleges are looking for, so you could get flagged to receive scholarships. So definitely check out my website to find out more information about that. I do that every year.
Yuritsa, you were legit doing God's work with what you're doing. And I am just so glad, first off, that you exist
Thank
and that you are putting this information out there. You are helping our community in ways that you probably don't even understand the impact that you're going to have by sharing this information. So thank you so much for what you do.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I feel the same way about you.
Thank you.
I think you're also doing God's work. And so thank you so much. And I just want to wish everyone happy scholarship hunting.
Yes. Get that money, y'all. Get that money. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
I hope you guys are completely blown away by this episode. I had no idea that by working for a university that you could actually get a free education. I definitely would have put that on my list of side hustles if I had known. But I'm super, super grateful to be able to provide this information. And I want to thank Yaritza again for coming on the show and sharing all of these amazing, valuable resources. Make sure that you're subscribed to our blog at yoquierodineropodcast.com. We're going to be doing a series of blog posts about college savings. So we're going to be talking about 529 plans, scholarships, and all types of information that you need if you or someone you love is getting ready for their college experience. Until next time, guys, stay involved, stay informed, and stay poderoso. On the Yo Quiero Dinero podcast and associated entities, all information provided is for general information purposes only and does not constitute accounting, legal, tax, or other professional advice. Listeners should not act upon the content or information found here without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional. We assume no responsibility for information contained on this podcast and associated entities and disclaim all liability with respect to such information, including but not limited to any liability for errors, inaccuracies, omissions, or misleading or defamatory statements. Usage of this podcast and associated content constitutes an explicit understanding and acceptance of the terms of this disclaimer.